Ask Daniel.
The morning I married Daniel Mercer, his mother poured a kettle of boiling water down the back of my wedding dress. She did it at 9:17 in the morning. In the bright white kitchen of the house Daniel and I had just bought outside Richmond, Virginia. My bridesmaids were upstairs. My father was waiting at the church. And the man I loved was sending me messages about how he could not wait to call me his wife. At least, I thought it was his mother. I learned the truth 3 months later, while she was sitting in jail and my husband was sleeping beside me. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 30, 4 years old, an Army veteran, and a fraud investigator for an insurance company. I made a living noticing details that other people missed. Yet somehow, I had failed to see the danger inside my own home. That morning, I stood at the marble counter, wearing the most expensive thing I had ever owned. My wedding gown had a fitted lace top, a long beaded skirt, and tiny silver flowers sewn along the train. My late mother had left me money for it. Buying that dress had felt like letting her attend the wedding in the only way she still could. Daniel's mother, Evelyn Mercer, stood behind me, holding a steel kettle. She and I had never been close. Evelyn was 60, too sharp-eyed, and impossible to impress. She thought Daniel should have married someone younger, richer, and easier to control. I knew that because she had told me so during our engagement dinner. Still, I never believed she would hurt me. I heard the kettle whistle stop. Then I felt a hard pull at the back of my jacket. I turned my head, and Evelyn's face looked strangely calm. "You should never have come into this family," she said. Then the water hit me. Pain exploded across my shoulder and back. I screamed and threw myself against the counter. The water struck the thick beading first, but it poured through the lace around my neck and soaked the lining. Steam rose from the dress. I remember the smell of hot fabric. I remember Evelyn still gripping the handle. Most of all, I remember that she did not look surprised. I knocked the kettle away and stumbled toward the sink. My maid of honor, Tessa, ran into the kitchen with 2 bridesmaids behind her. Someone turned on cold water. Someone called 911. Someone pulled at my dress. But the zipper would not move because the wet fabric had tightened. Evelyn said nothing. She stood near the stove until Tessa pushed her against the pantry door and demanded to know why she had done it. Evelyn looked directly at me. "Ask Daniel," she whispered. Those 2 words disappeared beneath the noise of the ambulance crew. But I heard them. I carried them with me all the way to the hospital. The burns were painful, but not life-threatening. The heavy dress had protected most of my skin. I had a serious burn across my left shoulder blade and smaller burns near my neck. The doctor said I was lucky. The wedding was canceled. Daniel arrived at the emergency room wearing his tuxedo. He looked terrified. He held my hand, cried against my hair, and promised that his mother would never come near me again. Police arrested Evelyn before noon. Daniel told them she had become unstable after her husband died. He said she had recently stopped taking medication. When an officer asked what medication, Daniel hesitated and said he did not know the name. I noticed the hesitation. Then I excused it. That was my first mistake. Evelyn refused to give a full statement. She repeated only one sentence. I was protecting my son. By evening, the story was everywhere. A neighbor had recorded the ambulance outside our house. Someone posted a picture of me arriving at the hospital in my damaged gown. Local news called Evelyn the kettle mother-in-law. Strangers debated whether she was evil, jealous, or mentally ill. Daniel stayed beside me through it all. He screened my calls, brought me medicine, and helped change the bandages on my back. When I woke from nightmares, he held me until I stopped shaking. 2 weeks later, we married quietly at the courthouse. My father objected. Tessa begged me to wait, but I wanted to prove that Evelyn had not won. Daniel seemed gentle, patient, and ashamed of his family. I thought marrying him was an act of courage. Now I understand it was exactly what he needed me to do. Evelyn remained in county jail because she could not afford the bond the judge had set. Daniel said he would not pay it. He told me that choosing me meant cutting her out of his life. For a while, our home became peaceful. We removed the photographs from the failed wedding and planned a honeymoon for winter. I returned to work. My skin began to heal. Then small things started happening. My bank sent a notice about a request to increase the limit on our home equity line. I had never made that request. A medical insurance form listed Daniel as the sole beneficiary of a new accidental death policy in my name. I did not remember signing it, and one Friday afternoon, my supervisor asked why I had applied for unpaid leave beginning in November. I had not applied for leave. When I asked Daniel, he always had an answer. The bank request was an automatic offer. The policy was part of a package we had discussed. The leave form must have been an office mistake. His explanations were possible. They were also too smooth. One night, I woke at 2 a.m. and found his side of the bed empty. A pale line of light shone beneath the office door. I walked down the hallway without making a sound. Daniel was talking on the phone. "She still trusts me," he said. "But we have to move faster." There was a pause. Then he said, "No, my mother won't talk. She knows what happens if she does." My hand froze above the doorknob. Daniel ended the call. I hurried back to bed and closed my eyes. A minute later, he slipped beneath the covers and kissed my unburned shoulder. I pretended to be asleep. That was the moment my marriage ended, although Daniel did not know it yet. The next morning, I made coffee, smiled at my husband, and began investigating him. Part 2. Teach Mamen. Ein JL fraud investigators learn one rule early: never confront a suspect before you understand the whole lie. I wanted to demand Daniel's phone. I wanted to ask whom he had called. Instead, I kissed him goodbye and drove to work as usual. At my desk, I opened a private notebook. I wrote down every suspicious event, beginning with the kettle attack. Then I built a timeline. The first detail that bothered me was Evelyn's medication. Daniel had told police she was unstable because she had stopped taking it. But in the 4 years I had known her, I had never seen her confused, depressed, or out of control. She drank 1 glass of wine at Christmas. She walked 3 miles every morning. She remembered every birthday and every insult. I called the jail and requested a visit. Evelyn entered the visitor's room wearing a gray uniform. Her hair, usually styled perfectly, hung around her face. She looked smaller than I remembered. But her eyes were clear. She sat across the glass and lifted the phone. "You finally came," she said. "Why did you burn me?" Her mouth tightened. "As Daniel with you?" "No." "Did he follow you?" "No." She looked over my shoulder as if he might appear behind me. "You told me to ask him," I said. "I'm asking you." For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she asked whether I had married him. When I said yes, her face collapsed. "Then I failed," she whispered. Anger rose through me. "You attacked me. You could have scared me for life. Don't sit there and act like you were helping. I was supposed to ruin the dress, not touch your skin. That does not make it better." "No," she said. "It doesn't." Evelyn pressed one hand against the glass. "But Daniel told me that if the wedding happened, you would be dead before Christmas." The room seemed to lose all sound. She told me a story I did not want to believe. 6 weeks before the wedding, Evelyn had found papers in Daniel's childhood bedroom. He had been storing boxes at her house after his father died. Inside one box were copies of my financial records, a life insurance application, and a report about the dangerous curve on River Mill Road. That road led to the cabin where Daniel planned to take me for our winter honeymoon. Evelyn confronted him. At first, he laughed. Then he admitted he was in debt. He claimed 2 business partners would destroy him if he did not repay them. He had borrowed against property he did not own and forged his mother's signature. According to Evelyn, he said my death would solve everything. He planned to drug me at the cabin, place me in my car, and send it down the steep bank beside River Mill Road. The accidental death policy would pay double. Our house would become his. My savings would cover the rest. Evelyn threatened to call police. Daniel showed her photographs of her breaking into my house. I stared at her. "You broke into my house." She lowered her eyes. "He gave me your alarm code. He told me to leave threatening notes so you would cancel the wedding. I thought fear was better than a funeral." For weeks before the ceremony, I had received blank cards containing pressed black flowers. Daniel blamed an old boyfriend. Police found no fingerprints. Evelyn had sent them. Daniel used those photographs to threaten her. If she exposed him, he would say she was obsessed with me and planning an attack. He had also forged messages in which she discussed killing me. On the wedding morning, he gave her one final order: destroy my dress and stop the ceremony. Or he would turn over the evidence and make sure she spent the rest of her life in prison. "Why use boiling water?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes. "It was not supposed to be boiling. I filled the kettle with cold water before you arrived. I checked it myself." That detail struck me harder than anything else. Then why was it hot? I left the kitchen for 10 minutes. Daniel was still in the house. I remembered the morning clearly. Daniel had claimed he left at 8:30, but my doorbell camera showed his car pulling away at 8:46. The attack happened 31 minutes later. Evelyn continued. "When I returned, the kettle was on the stove. I thought it was the one I had prepared. Daniel must have switched it or turned on the burner." Why would he want me burned before the wedding? Because then no one would believe me later. He needed me to look dangerous, and he needed you to depend on him. My stomach turned. It was horrifying. It was also only a story. Evelyn had every reason to blame her son and reduce her own responsibility. "Do you have proof?" I asked. "I hid the papers." "Where?" And she leaned close to the glass. "Your wedding dress. After the attack, the hospital sealed my gown in a large evidence bag. Police later returned it to Tessa, who stored it in her guest room closet because I could not stand to see it. Said she had slipped a small memory card into the dress before pouring the water. It was hidden beneath one of the silver flowers near the hem. "I knew Daniel would search my house," she said. "He would never look inside the thing I destroyed." I asked what was on the card. Photographs of every document I found. And a recording of Daniel threatening me. My grip tightened around the phone. "Why didn't you tell your lawyer?" "Daniel pays him." That sounded impossible until she named the attorney. Russell Kane had represented the Mercer family for years. Daniel had recommended him the day Evelyn was arrested. Before I left, Evelyn made me promise not to go home alone. "He will know if you find it," she said. "How?" "Because there was one thing on the card I never understood. A photograph of a woman. Her name was written on the back." "What name?" Evelyn looked at me with something close to pity. "Laura Vance." The name meant nothing to me then. By sunset, it would change everything. Part 3. First F. I drove straight to Tessa's apartment. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she locked the door, closed the curtains, and brought the wedding dress from her guest room. The gown looked like the remains of a terrible storm. Brown water stains marked the lace. Several beads were missing. The hospital had cut through one sleeve to remove it from my body. I knelt beside the skirt and searched the silver flowers. At first, I found nothing. Then I noticed one flower had been sewn with dark thread instead of white. I cut it open with Tessa's manicure scissors. A memory card fell into my palm. We put it into an old laptop disconnected from the internet. The card contained 3 photographs, 6 scanned documents, and 1 audio recording. The evidence showed that Daniel owed more than $800,000. Some of the debt came from gambling. Much of it came from a fake property investment company. He had persuaded 3 people to invest in houses that did not exist. 2 investors were elderly members of his parents' church. There were copies of my bank statements and photographs of my passport. There was a life insurance policy for $2 million. My signature appeared at the bottom. It was an excellent imitation, but it was not mine. Then I opened the report about River Mill Road. It included photographs of the curve, traffic statistics, and notes about a broken guardrail. One handwritten line read, "Rain gives best cover." The final image showed a smiling blonde woman standing beside Daniel at a beach. On the back of the original photograph, Evelyn had written 2 words before taking the picture. Laura Vance. I searched the name. Laura had died 6 years earlier when her car went off a mountain road in West Virginia during heavy rain. The article identified her fiancé as Daniel Mercer. I read the sentence 3 times. Daniel had told me he had never been engaged. Laura's death had been ruled an accident. She had alcohol and sleeping medication in her system. Her car struck a damaged section of guardrail and rolled into a ravine. Daniel received a $400,000 insurance payment because they had purchased a house together. The similarities were too exact to ignore. Tessa covered her mouth. "Claire, he has done this before." Maybe. This proves he lied. It does not prove murder. The audio recording proved more. Daniel's voice was quiet and cold. He told Evelyn that she had 2 choices. She could stop the wedding, or she could watch me die. When Evelyn threatened police, Daniel laughed. "Police believed Laura drove off that road by herself," he said. "They will believe Claire did too." Evelyn asked how he could speak about killing someone he claimed to love. Daniel answered, "Love is what makes them sign." I closed the laptop. For several minutes, neither Tessa nor I moved. I wanted to cry, but fear had pushed me beyond tears. I thought about Daniel applying medicine to my burns. I thought about him promising to protect me from his mother. Every gentle touch now felt contaminated. I called Detective Marcus Reed, the officer who had first interviewed me at the hospital. I told him I had evidence connected to Evelyn's case and possible evidence of another crime. He met us at a 24-hour diner. We gave him copies, not the original card. Reed listened to part of the recording and immediately contacted a prosecutor. But there was a problem. Evelyn had entered my house without permission, and she had taken photographs of documents she found inside Daniel's private box. A defense lawyer might challenge the evidence. The recording was stronger because Virginia law allows a person in a conversation to record it. Still, Daniel never directly said how Laura died or exactly how he planned to kill me. Reed believed we had enough to investigate, but perhaps not enough to convict. "Do not confront him," he warned, "and do not return home." I wanted Daniel arrested that night. Reed explained that moving too early could allow him to destroy evidence and claim the conversation was only an ugly family argument. The prosecutor needed something connecting Daniel to the forged policy, the current plot, or Laura's crash. I understood. Understanding did not make it easier. I checked into a hotel under Tessa's name and texted Daniel, and I was staying with her because my burns were hurting. He replied within seconds, "I'm coming to get you." I told him not to. He called 5 times. On the 6th call, I answered. His voice was sweet. "What happened, sweetheart?" "Nothing. I just need one night with Tessa." "Did you talk to anyone today?" The question came too quickly. "My doctor," I said. "Why?" "No reason." Then he asked whether I had visited his mother. My body went cold. "Why would I do that?" He laughed, but the sound was empty. "You wouldn't." "Forget I asked." After we hung up, Detective Reed called. Someone had used Daniel's credentials to view the jail's visitor records. Less than an hour after I left, Daniel's law office performed contract work for the county and had access to certain case systems. He knew. I expected him to run. Instead, he sent flowers to Tessa's apartment the next morning. The card read, "Come home, and we can begin again." Inside the envelope was one silver bead from my wedding dress. I called Reed. Police officers searched our house that afternoon, but Daniel was gone. His computer was gone too. The office safe stood open and empty. On the kitchen counter, he had left a bottle of wine, 2 glasses, and a printed reservation for the River Mill cabin. The reservation was for that night. Under it was a note addressed to me. "If you want the truth about Laura, come alone." Reed ordered patrols to watch every road near the cabin. He told me the invitation was a trap. I agreed. Then I told him we should use it. 4. Tirap, O Ravar Melrao Adi. The police plan was simple. I would call Daniel while detectives listened. I would tell him I had the memory card and wanted to trade it for the truth. If he confessed or threatened me, they would move. The call lasted 11 minutes. Daniel denied everything at first. Then I mentioned Laura. Silence filled the line. "My mother filled your head with poison," he said. "Your voice is on the recording. People say terrible things when they're angry." "Did you kill Laura?" He laughed softly. "Come to the cabin." "Claire, why?" "Because you deserve to hear the truth from your husband." Detective Reed shook his head. He wanted me to keep Daniel talking, but not agree to meet. Then Daniel said, "Bring the original card, or your father will hear the truth before you do." My chest tightened. "What does my father have to do with this?" "Call him." The line went dead. My father did not answer his phone. A patrol officer reached his house 10 minutes later and found the front door open. There was no sign of a struggle, but his truck was gone. Daniel had taken him. The plan changed. Police located my father's truck using a toll camera 40 miles west of Richmond. It was heading toward River Mill Road. Detective Reed did not want me anywhere near the cabin, but Daniel demanded the card and would know if someone else came. So I wore a hidden microphone beneath my blouse and a tracker inside my shoe. The memory card in my pocket was a copy. Police vehicles followed at a distance. Rain began as I entered the mountains. Of course it did. The road narrowed between black trees. Water flashed beneath my headlights. When I reached the cabin, my father's truck was parked outside. Daniel opened the door before I knocked. He wore jeans and the dark blue sweater I had given him for his birthday. He smiled as if we had arrived for a romantic weekend. "Where is my father?" I asked. "Safe?" I stepped inside. The cabin smelled of cedar, smoke, and red wine. A fire burned in the stone fireplace. On the table sat a bottle, 2 glasses, and a small white bottle of sleeping pills. It was a stage prepared for my death. My father was tied to a chair in the back room. His mouth was covered, but he was conscious. Daniel allowed me to see him for 3 seconds before closing the door. "Give me the card," Daniel said. "Tell me about Laura first." His expression changed. The gentle husband disappeared. In his place stood the man Evelyn had heard on the recording. Laura was careless, he said. She drank too much. She mixed pills with alcohol. Did you put her in the car? You are wearing a wire. My heart stopped. Daniel reached toward me. I stepped back and grabbed a fireplace poker. He smiled. I know how investigations work, Claire. You taught me? He pulled a small device from his pocket. A detector. He moved it near my blouse, and it screamed. Then he struck me. I fell against the table. One wine glass shattered. Daniel tore the microphone from my clothing and dropped it into the fire. The police are outside, I said. No. They are following the tracker in your shoe. He held up my other shoe. I had removed it when he let me see my father. Daniel must have taken it during those few seconds. Before I could react, he threw it through the open back door into the bed of an old pickup truck. A second man started the engine and drove away. The police would follow the moving signal. Daniel was not working alone. The driver was Russell Kane, Evelyn's attorney. That was the twist Evelyn had never seen. Russell was not merely protecting Daniel. He had helped build the entire scheme. He created the fake investment documents, witnessed the forged insurance forms, and kept Evelyn silent by pretending to represent her. Russell needs 10 minutes, Daniel said. By then, we'll be gone. He forced me to drink from the unbroken glass. I kept my lips closed, but he pinched my nose until I swallowed. The wine tasted bitter. Laura fought too, he said. It made no difference. There it was. Not a full confession, but the truth. He dragged me toward the door. My legs were already weakening. He planned to put my father and me into separate vehicles. My father's death would look like a heart attack. Mine would look like another rainy road accident. But Daniel had missed one thing. I had expected him to find the microphone before leaving Richmond. Detective Reed had sewn a second transmitter inside the burn bandage on my shoulder. The scar Daniel helped treat became the hiding place for the evidence that destroyed him. Every word was still being transmitted. I only needed to keep him talking. Why me? I asked, letting my voice shake. You already got Laura's money. Laura's money disappeared. Bad investments. So you married me for insurance. I married you because you were perfect. No children, a valuable house. A military record that made people believe you were strong enough to hide pain. If your car went over that bank, everyone would call it a tragedy. And your mother? She was useful until she became emotional. You turned on the kettle. Daniel leaned close to me. I needed you frightened, not dead. Not yet. Mother ruined the timing when she poured too high. Blue lights flashed through the cabin windows. For the first time. Daniel looked afraid. He grabbed me around the neck and pressed a knife beneath my jaw. Police shouted outside. My father kicked the wall in the back room. Daniel dragged me onto the porch. Rain struck my face. Detective Reed stood behind an open car door with his weapon raised. Let her go. Daniel. Daniel demanded a car and a clear road. Reed kept him talking. I felt Daniel's arm tighten as sirens approached from both directions. Then I heard the kettle whistle in my memory. I remembered the pain. I remembered Daniel kissing my bandage while planning to kill me. Rage gave me one clean second of strength. I drove my heel down onto his foot, dropped my weight, and twisted away. The knife cut my collar but missed my skin. Daniel reached for me. Detective Reed fired one shot into the porch railing beside his hand. Daniel froze. Officers pulled me to safety and forced him to the ground. Russell Kane was arrested 4 miles away after driving the pickup into a police roadblock. My father was freed. The drug in my wine made me ill, but doctors treated me before it caused lasting harm. At 3 in the morning, I lay in a hospital bed, with my father asleep in a chair beside me. Detective Reed entered carrying an evidence bag. Inside was Daniel's phone. "We found a video," he said. "It shows what happened to Laura." Daniel had recorded her final minutes as insurance against Russell. The two men had drugged Laura, placed her in the driver's seat, and pushed her car toward the broken guardrail. Russell filmed while Daniel steered from the open door, jumped free, and watched the car disappear. They had kept the video for 6 years because criminals trust blackmail more than friendship. The mystery was over. Now I wanted justice. 5. T. Duras I. Cour. Daniel Mercer was charged with the murder of Laura Vance, attempted murder, kidnapping, insurance fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and several financial crimes. Russell Kane faced many of the same charges. Evelyn was released from jail 4 days later. Her release did not erase what she had done to me. She had entered my home, frightened me, and poured water onto my body without knowing whether it would burn. Fear explained her choices. It did not excuse them. She pleaded guilty to assault and unlawful entry. Because she cooperated and helped prevent my murder, the judge sentenced her to time served, probation, and community service. When she left the courthouse, reporters surrounded her. She did not call herself a hero. She looked into the cameras and said, "I hurt an innocent woman because I was too afraid to tell the truth." Silence does not protect a family. It protects the person destroying it. I watched from inside. For the first time, I believed she understood. Daniel's lawyers tried to make me look greedy, unstable, and vindictive. They said I had turned a family disagreement into a murder story because I wanted his property. They claimed the cabin conversation was entrapment. They argued that Laura's video showed Russell's crime, not Daniel's. Then the prosecutor played the recording from beneath my bandage. The courtroom heard Daniel say that Laura had fought. It heard him explain why he chose me. It heard him admit that he had heated the kettle and planned my death. His own voice removed every mask he had ever worn. I testified for 2 days. On the second morning, the prosecutor asked whether I recognized the object on the evidence table. An officer unfolded my wedding dress. A sound moved through the courtroom. The white fabric was stained and cut. The beading caught the light. Near the hem, one silver flower hung open where Tessa and I had found the memory card. Daniel stared at it. For months, I had hated that dress. I saw it as a monument to humiliation. But in court, it became something else. It carried the card that exposed him. Its thick layers protected my skin. Its damaged flower opened the path to Laura's truth. The dress was not the symbol of a wedding he had ruined. It was evidence. The prosecutor asked me to describe the kettle attack. I told the jury about the pain, the hospital, and Evelyn's warning. Then I looked directly at Daniel. He no longer looked charming. He looked ordinary. That surprised me most. Evil had not announced itself with a cruel face or a raised voice. It had made coffee, remembered anniversaries, and fastened clean bandages over the wound it created. "Did you love the defendant?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," I said. "I love the person he performed for me." "And what do you feel now?" I thought carefully. "Nothing he can use." The jury convicted him on every major charge. Daniel received life in prison without the possibility of parole for Laura's murder, plus additional years for the crimes against my father and me. Russell accepted a deal and received 2 years after testifying about their fraud network. The insurance company canceled the forged policy. The state seized Daniel's hidden assets. Money recovered from his accounts went to the elderly people he had defrauded and to Laura's surviving sister. That was the justice I wanted. Not blood. Not a private act of revenge that would turn me into another prisoner. I wanted Daniel to lose the three things he valued most: freedom, money, and control over the story. He lost all three. My marriage was annulled. Legally, it was treated as if it had never existed. Emotionally, the process was not so clean. I still woke when kettles whistled. I still checked the back seat of my car. For months, I could not drink red wine. A raised male voice in a restaurant could send my heart racing before my mind understood why. Healing did not arrive like victory music after the verdict. It came quietly. It came the first night I slept for 8 hours. It came when I drove River Mill Road in daylight with Tessa beside me and did not look away from the curve. It came when my father repaired the broken gate at my house and said, "You do not have to prove you are strong every minute." It came when I finally met Laura's sister, Megan. We sat together on a bench overlooking the James River. Megan brought a photograph of Laura laughing on the beach. It was taken on the same day as the picture Evelyn found, but Daniel had been cropped out. Megan told me Laura had planned to leave him. She had discovered missing money and a second insurance policy. On the night she died, Laura called her sister and promised to explain everything the next morning. The next morning never came. "You gave her back her name," Megan told me. For 6 years, newspapers had described Laura as a drunk driver who made a fatal mistake. After the trial, those articles were corrected. Her death certificate was changed from accidental to homicide. Her family held a new memorial service, this time with the truth spoken aloud. That mattered more to me than Daniel's sentence. Evelyn and I did not become family. Real life is not that simple. I could forgive some things without inviting them back into my home. She wrote me 1 letter every month during her probation. I answered only once. I told her that courage would have meant going to police before the wedding. It would have meant trusting me with the truth instead of deciding what fear I could survive. But I also told her the memory card saved my life, my father's life, and Laura's reputation. 2 weeks later, she mailed me a small box. Inside was the steel kettle. Police had released it after the trials. Evelyn included a note asking me to destroy it. I almost did. Instead, I took it to a metal artist in Richmond. I asked her to melt it down and make 3 small silver, colored flowers. I gave one to my father. I sent one to Megan Vance. I kept the third. It sits on my desk beside a photograph of my mother. People sometimes ask whether that flower is my revenge. It is not. My revenge was surviving long enough to testify. My revenge was turning Daniel's secrets into public record. My revenge was helping every person he had cheated recover what could still be recovered. My revenge was living in the house he tried to steal and filling it with a life that no longer included his name. 1 year after the trial, Tessa convinced me to take the wedding dress out of its box. We spread it across my dining room table. I ran my fingers over the burned lace and the cut sleeve. The gown could never be restored, and I did not want it restored. Some damage should remain visible, because hiding it only helps the person who caused it. I donated part of the fabric to an exhibit about domestic financial abuse. The museum displayed the open silver flower and explained how forged insurance policies, secret debt, and coercive control can become signs of physical danger. I kept 1 square of lace. On certain mornings, sunlight passes through it and throws tiny patterns across my wall. When that happens, I think about the woman I was before the kettle. She believed love required trust without questions. She believed endurance was the same as courage. She believed revenge meant making someone hurt as much as she had hurt. I know better now. Love does not fear careful questions. Courage can mean leaving before you have every answer. And the strongest revenge is not becoming crueler than the person who betrayed you. It is becoming impossible for them to control. Daniel once told his mother that love was what made women sign. He was wrong. Love did not write the final chapter of our marriage. I did. And when I laid down the pen, the woman in the ruined white dress was no longer his bride, his victim, or his plan. She was the evidence he could never destroy.